Hey everybody. Today we're going to be looking at a video called Internet Culture is Freaking Nauseating. That's me adding a little censor there to keep it PG for YouTube. I want to make money. This video is made by a creator called Blessing Stranded. You should go watch that video. I've left it linked in the description. I'd appreciate it if you did so you can be sure that I'm not misrepresenting any of his points. I'd also like to ask that you don't comment on the video unless you have something constructive to say. I know for the vast majority of you who are respectful and normal and cool and chill even, that might sound patronizing, and for that I apologize. But some of you do need to hear that. So sorry and thank you, and you're welcome. Okay, so just to start off, I actually like this video. I think it's a good video. It's thoughtful, it's nuanced, and it makes some great points, ones that I think represent the perspectives of a lot of people out there. It offers some salient critiques of tribalism and toxicity, and the conclusion of the video is a call for empathy during online engagement, which we love to see it. We love it. So if I think it's a good video, what are we doing here? Well, despite the good points, there are a few things that I do disagree with, and today I want to provide some counterpoints to those arguments and just give my perspective and thoughts. Not that anyone asked, but I don't know, I thought it'd be fun to try something a little different than what we usually do on the channel. Dialectics, that's the new direction I want to take these response videos, towards dialectics. If you don't know what that means, check out this picture here and then substitute these in for that. Hegel would have loved this chart. He loved to text. All right, without further ado, let's go. The first argument from this video that I want to look at concerns the use of the term incel. Blessing Stranded makes the case that the term is overused, sensationalized, and weaponized to the point where it's becoming unhelpful and counterproductive. While he acknowledges the real harm done, the horrors created by the quote-unquote real incels of the world, specifically citing some spree shootings undertaken by self-proclaimed incels, to him it seems that the majority of the time the term incel is being used is as a dig towards frustrated men who very likely do not deserve that label and might be helped if we didn't use it on them.
I can't count the number of times I've seen a guy vent about something, even if just briefly, and instead of people trying to help them, they just try making sure that guy isn't thinking about going on a killing spree. Like, how the fuck did you manage to take things from a 1 or 2 all the way to 1,000?
Now, he makes what I think is a really good point in this section about how this label weaponizes the patriarchal expectations of men and sex against them and shames them when they don't adhere to that expectation.
Not to mention that the abuse of this word upholds the exact same ideals that are criticized constantly about masculine culture, things that I myself don't like either, such as sex for men being perceived as one of the highest status symbols, because I've seen online the way this damages men. The concept of immediately poking fun at a man's sex life, regardless of how successful it actually is, feels weirdly juvenile.
Being a man that has sex does not preclude one from being a misogynist. That's true, go off. Now, where we start to run into some issues, though, is when Blessing Stranded gives us an example of this wrongful labeling. He presents the internet's response to a 12-year-old who made some inflammatory comments on his Instagram story after a breakup.
A great example of this are all the people panicking over a 12-year-old saying dumb shit after a breakup, with presumably his older brother calling him an incel in this screenshot, which is insane, and people quoting the tweet with all these think pieces. I'm not saying you should find this funny or amusing, but he is literally 12. People acting heartbroken about how it starts so young, as if 12-year-olds aren't known for saying the most outlandish shit, including racism and jokes about the Holocaust. And I'm not saying no one finds that distasteful either. I don't exactly find it amusing when little kids say racist shit to be edgy, but that's what a lot of 12-year-olds do, and we know this. It's why no one makes think pieces and dramatically worded sentences about how these are the kinds of kids that become cops and start killing black people, or that they'll grow up to become neo-Nazis. Now, maybe if a 12-year-old went on a rant about why certain groups of people need to be killed or assaulted, or the things he says seem very obviously passed down to the adults in his environment, then I can understand, and I would agree. But that's not what's happening here.
The caption of this story reads, "Don't fall in love, all bitches are cheating, lying whores." This post is framed by Blessing Stranded as just edgy, distasteful, dumb, and outlandish, not out of character for anything another 12-year-old might say, but calling him an incel for a post like this is to him an unfair and extreme leap. Now, first off, I do want to point out that the majority of the posts that he shows aren't actually calling the kid an incel. The original post calls what he says incel shit, but doesn't label him as an incel directly. One person says that they're sad for girls who have to experience the extreme misogyny on display here. One advocates the kids be taught about breakups in schools, another is concerned. Another still is worried about how young the kid is to be saying things like this. These posts are all critical of the content in the original post, but the majority of them never actually call him an incel. This distinction between writing concerns about his rhetoric and outright calling him an incel is important, because the unfair labeling aspect of the latter is what Blessing Stranded takes issue with.
And the word incel is a great example of how people lose lose the plot. It used to genuinely terrify me back in like 2015. Because the only time you saw that word being used is when the person legitimately fit the description. But now the word gets handed out like CDs in the early 2000s. I see that shit now and it means absolutely nothing. It fucking reeks of a chronically online individual. I've literally never seen a well-adjusted human being with an actual life use that word unironically, with the overwhelming majority not even knowing what it means. It's genuinely insane to me that we have a word where the spectrum on one end has literal serial killers, and on the other, there's guys that says something you didn't like. And then there's everything in fucking between.
I find this point a bit weird because, sure, on the one hand, we can never say definitively whether or not this kid is an incel, as in actually an incel, posting on the forums and self-identifying as such. But what we can do is look at what he is saying. And this post here is an incel-ass post. He is making an incel argument, one that is foundational to their worldview, to their politics. He starts out with a negative generalization about the deviant nature of all women, all bitches are cheating, lying whores, and with that claim in mind, he goes on to warn you, as a boy or a man, to stay away from them, don't fall in love, or be celibate, you might say. While a self-identifying incel might take that first claim, that all women are whores, and follow it up by concluding that that's why they'll always pick Chad over you, you'll never win, so don't even try, or whatever. The boy's conclusion that men should stay away from women adheres to this same logic. The logic of explicitly resenting all women, and adjusting your behavior according to that principle. Elliot Rogers, the incel spree shooter who Blessing Stranded later cites as an example of what a real incel looks like, his manifesto was filled with this sort of rhetoric. In its final pages, Roger writes, "Women are like a plague. They don't deserve to have any rights. Their wickedness must be contained in order to prevent future generations from falling to degeneracy. Women are vicious, evil, barbaric animals, and they must be treated as such." Statistically speaking, yes, it is extremely unlikely that the kid in the original post will go on an incel killing spree. But the next incel that does, he will be using this logic as justification. That's what makes it, in my opinion, okay for someone to describe this post as an incel-ass post, because saying something like this is a stepping stone to that end point of becoming an incel. Not all misogynists are incels, no, but all incels are misogynists. And that process begins with statements like the one that this 12-year-old posted. The plea to stop labeling every misogynist as an incel is valid, I think. But that shouldn't prevent us from being able to draw connections between misogyny and inceldom. If we're not allowed to identify and criticize incel rhetoric until the bodies start dropping, then we're in big trouble, in my opinion. Alright, on to the next point. So this one concerns how Blessing Stranded feels that we ought to deal with sensational online cult type figures. He gives a few examples and then eventually lands on Andrew Tate. The argument he makes with Tate is that the best way to deal with someone like him is to stop giving him airtime.
I am so fucking tired of seeing the internet's new Donald Trump and hearing all these god-awful think pieces and tantrums over his popularity. He is the perfect example of sensationalism. Every time I think he's gone for good, he's forced back onto my feed all over again. This was easily one of the most cringe interactions I've ever had to sit through. And y'all gave her 4 million for this weak-ass response. 4. His entire brand is that he's the forbidden messenger that the world is out to get. That he's the one that will lead the revolution of masculinity against modern society who seeks to destroy it. And then what do y'all do? Instead of speaking on him once or twice, then never again, you continuously feed into that image, crying over every last thing he does, making him more popular, spreading his message even wider, and giving his claims more validity to his audience. You are complaining about the same thing that you are directly contributing to. If being hated for the truth or having the balls to say something is a key part of someone's identity, your best bet is to literally ignore them. As in, do not give them the attention that they need.
So this is an anti-platforming argument, as in platforming the views of someone like Andrew Tate lends them some sense of validity. It exposes larger audiences to his ideas, inevitably adding more people to his fan base and not solving any of the underlying issues. The best and only real solution here is to stop talking about him altogether. I actually agree with this argument in some contexts. Like a while back when Sneeko brought the neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes onto his stream and neither Sneeko nor any of his guests were equipped to adequately challenge his views, this ended up exposing thousands of young people to a bunch of racist arguments without being presented the vitally necessary counterarguments. It normalized having a Nazi in the room, saying Nazi stuff on a massive platform. Okay, so quick editor's note. I realized that eventually Destiny came out of that stream and argued with Fuentes a whole bunch, and that was, probably a good thing. But pretty much everything leading up to that point was an uncritical presentation of Nick's views. This is bad, in my opinion, because it grants Nazi views an undue level of legitimacy for a civilized society. Bringing it back to Andrew Tate, though, the trouble with applying the platforming argument to him is that even if everyone talking about him were to stop criticizing him forever, that wouldn't make him go away. Unlike Fuentes, Tate is massively influential online. He was, and still is, going viral every day. His rhetoric is showing up in elementary school classrooms. He was the most Google search term for a while, I think, or the third most, I don't know. Way too high on the chart. The reason why any of these commentators or journalists are even talking to or about him is because of that massive online presence. In the case of the videos he shows of Hassan and Vice News talking about Tate, I think this is a context in which platforming makes sense. The reason for that is Tate's prominence at the time, as well as the fact that these videos were effective in countering Tate's views. This was and is necessary, given the way that these views have proliferated online and offline caused real-world harm. If Blessing Stranded feels that these videos are somehow inadequate in challenging Tate's views, or if he feels that their ultimate contribution is spreading those views uncritically, I would be interested in hearing why. If it doesn't, then it seems like the argument he's making here is that after we've talked about harmful figures once or twice, we shouldn't anymore, full stop, which to me seems like it would cause a great deal of trouble in the long term. If freaks like Tate end up dominating the entire internet, what message is that sending to the people most likely to fall for his trickery? How many millions will be captured into his rhetoric, and how much real-world harm will this cause? I don't know, but it'd be a lot, in my opinion. The last thing I want to talk about on this point is the way that Blessing Stranded actually makes a pro-platforming argument. He cites the trend of joke tweets that share sensational posts and add intentionally unrelated commentary.
In general, the best way to handle a lot of shit is to simply ignore it, or at least not feed into it. I don't know if y'all ever seen tweets where all the replies was just unrelated nonsense and basically everyone was ignoring the original poster. It's quite rare. But that to me feels like the ideal way to respond to someone saying dumb shit online. Instead of everybody getting riled up alongside with you, turn that post into a good unrelated laugh instead. But unfortunately, the majority of the internet seems to be allergic to the idea of ignoring things it doesn't like, and especially things it doesn't want to bring the wrong attention to.
Now, on first pass, these tweets might seem like they are ignoring the problem. They're not commenting on or responding to the original posts, they're turning it into something funny or positive with jokes and memes, none of which are related whatsoever to the original sentiments being expressed. However, by responding to the original posts in this way, these people are making a statement about them. They are sharing these posts with seemingly unrelated commentary, and the statement being made there is that the idea I'm sharing is so socially transgressive or absurd or unworthy of consideration that we can move past it and talk about something else. The debate has already been settled, this post sucks, so check out this crochet lion or whatever else. These posts often go viral, and the reason for that is that the people who share them understand and agree with the statement that they make, with their non-statement. The unrelated quote tweets on a post reading, "Ladies, can y'all really pay all of your bills without a man?" only goes viral because the communities that share it are already in agreement that the original post is dumb and bad. If everyone that saw this tweet was genuinely interested in debating the topic of ladies paying bills without a man, the unrelated meme thing wouldn't make any sense, and none of these posts would go viral. In promoting this approach to responding to criticism, Blessing Stranded is making a pro-platforming argument. These are a form of discourse. The people are not ignoring the original content, they are sharing it. They are exposing more people to the original idea. And unlike Hassan or Vice's videos about Andrew Tate, they are doing so without providing any meaningful counterargument. And to be clear here, I think that's okay. I'm not criticizing Blessing Stranded for liking these tweets. I like them too. I think they're funny and a refreshing form of internet criticism. But us liking them should not obscure the fact that that's what they are, internet criticism. That is how they function online. And that's okay, in my opinion. I think it's even maybe good. But this contradicts directly with the idea that the best way to solve problems is to stop talking about them. We need to argue about them. We love to argue. I love to argue. I will never log off. The last point I want to talk about today concerns the idea of call-out culture. Blessing Stranded makes a number of points against the idea of call-out culture, about how it's a losing battle and how it mostly ends up with creators just preaching to the choir. making content for their own audiences without accomplishing anything or changing any minds.
In today's age, you have a group of people that rely on call-out culture as a way to tackle all issues, trying to use that method against a group of people who are anti-culture. I won't say their hearts aren't in the right place, but how many times can your method fail before you decide to step out your box and think, maybe we should try something different? Instead of making even worse think pieces about a situation you have an inherent misunderstanding of due to a very intense bias. Both sides fail to understand that your ideology towards things like these only works amongst like-minded people. You are barely convincing anyone that leans more towards the ideologies you hate that they should change with these kinds of videos. It's really just circle jerk content served in a pretty package for like-minded individuals to gobble up. Especially considering it is extremely common for people to seek out this type of content to help soothe the anger caused by interactions revolving around the same topic.
So there's a few points I want to bring up in response to this. Firstly, he states that the methods we're applying with these call-out videos are failing, and that we might be served by rethinking our approach. The problem with that, though, is that failure is a subjective term, one that is entirely dependent on what our goals are. One of Blessing Stranded's goals seems to be making content that changes people's minds and not just preaching to the choir. While he's making that point, he shows a few different videos on the screen as examples of this kind of preaching. So are these videos preaching to the choir? Well, in one sense, yes, creators have audiences, and for that reason, bias will always play into the process of making content. If you look at the comment sections of any of these videos, you'll find people that do already agree with the content contained within them. That's the case for all of them. Mr. Beard, who goes by Ryan Beard now, FD Signifier, my video, Jake's video, and yes, with Matt Walsh, who he included in this group. But is that always a bad thing? Personally, I think it depends. In the case of Ryan's video, for example, you have a number of people in the comments who do agree with him, but there's more to that agreement than simply, I like this video because I agree with it. There seems to be a certain expression of joy that in Ryan's videos, their experiences are being represented, and from it, they know that they're not alone in their struggles against the harmful conservative influences in their lives, the ones that Ryan is criticizing. I just got kicked out of my religious, ultra-Republican school in the Midwest where I was getting taunted for being trans, and this video just gives me joy. Thanks. As someone who lives in a household surrounded by conservatives, it's so refreshing to hear someone speak so openly and confidently about their beliefs. I always feel put down and gaslit all the time when I express that I don't agree with the terrible bigotry that they spew on a day-to-day basis. It's hard not to doubt yourself having to put up with it. At my conservative family's house, and I just had a nightmare that I was outed and had to admit to being gay and non-binary. This video has definitely helped me stop stressing in case that is some weird prophetic dream. Calling it preaching to the choir has always been a sort of cynical way to frame the fact that online communities exist, that people congregate around creators whose beliefs they share and who feel represented by their content, but that doesn't automatically make what's being done in these spaces a waste of time. There is some real value in content beyond its ability to change people's minds, and I don't think we should dismiss that. But even if we're sticking to this definition of success, as in changing minds, there's plenty of evidence of that in these comment sections. From Ryan's video, I thought I was conservative until now. What have we done? The hypocrisy here is making me gag. I won't lie, Mr. Beard, I consider myself a moderate, but I lean slightly towards the conservative side of the spectrum. This video was actually very educational for me. I had heard the wrong side of the Potato Head story, and I never knew it was changed due to merely expanding their brand. I was always told that it was due to the Mr. being misogynistic. Thank you for educating a slight conservative in a way that made me laugh on these matters. Blessing Stranded also cited FD Signifier's video dissecting the manosphere as an example of preaching to the choir through misunderstanding. That comment section is also full of people who've changed their minds. Parts of this video ripped into me in a way that I did not expect. I felt both called out and understood. Even though I feel that much of my younger, edgier self is behind me, it still haunts me in many ways, and I know self-growth will probably never be complete. I am lucky that I did not end up worse, and am extremely grateful for the work you have put into this video and into your channel as a whole. I'm 54 minutes in, and it's a credit to you and the type of person you are that you were able to approach things from an empathetic but still critical perspective. It can be fun to watch those videos that just slam and mock these people because they're often awful, but it doesn't necessarily help me understand where they come from and how to effectively oppose them. I used to be someone that this video was about. I never made it farther down the rabbit hole, but deprogramming and fixing my thinking still took a while. I think the biggest aspects that contributed to being in that mentality was mental illness, being without friends, and growing up in too wide of a space. Every video I've seen from this channel has been informative, and I'm grateful for the perspective, since there's not enough black folks where I live. So even using Blessing Stranded's own definition of success, these videos haven't failed. Far from it, they have changed minds. And no, not all of the viewers' minds are being changed. Of course not. None of these creators are naive enough to think that that'd be possible. But, with these videos, we are advocating for our politics. And if that process occurs one person at a time, then that's okay. That doesn't mean that all we're doing here is just preaching to a choir. And I think that's, important to keep into account. All right, so just really quickly, I'm going to conclude with some final thoughts. Touching grass is good. Arguing online can have negative effects to your mental health. I recently visited family, and for that trip, I deleted Twitter and YouTube Studio off my phone. And my body did indeed make contact with some grass. And that caused my mental health to do a little bit of this. But the reality is, the internet and internet culture, they are here to stay. All sorts of communities have formed online. It has created spaces for entertainment, politics, social issues, whatever else. People will be here online until someone pulls the plug. And yes, we can always improve the ways we go about online discourse. Blessing Stranded's video outlines a number of ways that is possible, especially in his conclusion. But, I don't think those shortcomings should discouraging us from undertaking criticism at all. Far from it, I think it should motivate us at the creator level to be better, fairer, more nuanced, and more empathetic when we're engaging with each other online. Because if we believe in something in a way to, say, improve the world or better understand the harm being done by certain figures online, we should speak up. Even if it's messy, even if it's not perfect, that's what we're here to do, and that's the whole point of being here. And I think it's good for the most part. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Let me know what you thought of this video. A little bit different, like I said, but would appreciate some feedback. Shout out to my patrons who should be scrolling by right now. If you want to get in the credits of my videos, go to patreon.com/Samsen, SAMSEN, to go sign up for giving me money. All right, everybody, bye.